Not live yet. Welcome to the upper deck for Pinstripe Chronicles. I'm Chris, that's Lynn. We're happy you joined us today. Welcome. We're having technical difficulties today.
In case you technical difficulties, Chris means me. She's just being nice. I had technical difficulties.
Let's put it this way. It feels like spring training up here today.
Yeah, clearly I'm not breaking camp.
So I'm going to just jump right in with both. We had some predictions that we want to check in on at this point in spring training. Lynn, I know you had a list that you had created earlier, and maybe even was it before the season started, the spring training?
Yeah, it was earlier on, and we thought, Chris and I, that we would start with flashing forward to March 30th for the opening day predictions, and then unpack what that means based on what we're seeing now in spring training. So I am going to show you here on the screen what Chris and I discussed. So you could read it for yourself. I think that Chris made a fair point when we were talking that you'll see that there's an asterisk that we have there for Hicks. Essentially, we think that Hicks and IKF are going to get that badge of honor as starting on opening day, but we expect that we're going to see Cabrera and Peraza or Volpe in, depending on if Volpe breaks camp. And the rest is there that I think is very predictable. And I did want to share that we have Cole on the hill because Cole and opening day. But Brian Hogue had an article on MLB.com this week called "The 5 Dark Horses to Break Out in 2023," and so he said that one of his dark horses, the dark horse for the Yankees, is left-hand pitcher Matt Crook. And this was a name that I hadn't heard mentioned before, but he's on the cusp of making his major league debut. He's 28 years old. He had a 10-7 record with a 4.9 ERA in 29 games. That's with 22 starts at AAA last year. And Boone says that they're having a real problem. That Crook will be a real problem for lefties because of the way that he deals, and that they're actually in serious considerations for activating him. They were seriously almost brought him in for the postseason, and so he's under very serious consideration now. So let's have that name in the back of our head. Absolutely. Opening day, I think Brian Hoke is it's a dark horse. It's the dark variety of horses. So I think the article was aptly named.
Yeah, that's one dark horse.
Very dark.
And if we look at the shortstop situation, there's like 4 shortstops: Sweeney, Volpe, Peraza, and IKF. And it seems like we've kind of gotten the signal that IKF will be the opening day. And I feel like, to be realistic, we have to consider that's a serious that'll happen, because the Yankees love this guy.
They do, and I think that he is the most of the 2 asterisks we have for Hicks and IKF. He is the most guaranteed, I think. And Hicks, I think they are ready to. I think that's all but official. I think that he seems to be, all signs are showing from the beat reporters and not so much from Boone, but that he's really grinding it and showing a huge improvement during camp. And so while I would have predicted early on before the game started that we'd be seeing Cabrera in left field, that's one prediction that to me, I don't know that will actually play out. And I'm saying I think most of us were thinking that, or maybe just praying that it would be Cabrera out there and left. But
Yeah.
Hicks is not. And Chris, we talked about this before the show. Hicks did himself in last season by throwing down the gauntlet and saying that he's going to be the 30-30 guy. And so he got retribution for that. And all signs are pointing to, he learned from that, because he said in all his interviews that, it shows self-reflection. He changed up his program, and he's looking better. And he still thinks that's his job. It's his job. But he understands it's his to win still. And he did get a home run yesterday. So that's one to hang our hope.
Yeah. And, with Hicks, Lynn, I know that you have we want to start the season out optimistic. And I think we're stuck with Hicks in left field, just like we're stuck with IKF. However, with Hicks, it's his contract. He's the big gun out there. Aside from Stanton, I mean, if only Stanton could be in left field, that would be so much preferable to me. But I think the question to throw to the chat is, what would Hicks have to do for you to feel optimistic about his role this season?
Well, go ahead.
Elliot's got the comment there about Hicks's interview yesterday. I thought that was a weird interview too. He seemed very cautious. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He did say during that interview, though, Elliot, I think that well, it may not have been that exact interview. Maybe it was something I read. He still considers it his job. Or that might have been Curry's takeaway after Meredith turned it back to him in the studio. But yeah, and Elliot, you're right. And the guy spoke to this on one of their shows recently. Hicks is more than aware of how displeased the fans are with him. And if he weren't, we'd be worried neurologically about him. Because one thing we're good at is making players know when we're not happy with them. But again, I'm not so sure he would have gotten as much vile if he hadn't had so much hubris at the start of the season with no receipts to back it up. So he 2018 was a few years ago, last season as it was. So yeah, and so he does have to be consistent. Elliot agreed. And yeah, Lori's saying he would be booed right out of town. Yeah. But I think the difference may be, and again, that's why we're just talking predictions. I think he may be prepared for it. He should be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And last season he wasn't. So it really got into his head because, he held on to that pride until there was no holding on to it. And by then it was too late. And yet somehow he was still surprised and thrown off. He's been in New York for a while, and should have known better, but got in his head, got in his way. And so I'm not fully prepared to climb up on the hill for Hicks, but I'm going to say that signs point to lessons learned and efforts made. And maybe a little dash, maybe like a quarter teaspoon of humility in there now. And he also, I mean, if he's thinking, he knows the competition is tight. Wouldn't you think he's nervous when there's talk about putting Judge in left field?
Yeah.
that Stanton, I mean, wouldn't that make you nervous if you weren't already nervous by Cabrera? So we'll have to see. But again, I think that if he continues the way he's continuing now, and it's been a surprise, this is a prediction I would not have expected. He's doing well so far during these exhibition games. If that stays, we should expect him to open, but Cabrera to come in. I don't think he'll, be the entire game kind of guy.
Right. But I mean, I envision Cabrera being a utility, like the super utility guy he was last year, as well. I don't see him winning a job. That's just me. But
Yeah.
And Donaldson, I think, Elliott's mentioning Hicks, IKF, and Donaldson. I think that that's another area of concern. Will Donaldson bounce back?
Well, this is a hill I'm not even ready to look at, let alone think about climbing on.
No, I'd be happy to see DJ at third base on opening day, but I don't believe that's what's going to happen.
Right.
Sadly.
And I don't know how everyone feels in the chat about Donaldson and what they've seen. My problem is I haven't been able to see him until yesterday.
Yeah.
And yesterday he was zeros across the board. So it's unfair for me to say, well, prediction's still in place. But, I didn't check his numbers so far. So Brad's saying hell will freeze over if Donaldson bounces back.
Yeah. I was saying to Lynn before we came on today, it's, I hope Donaldson bounces back. I hope he's the freaking comeback player of the year. But for me personally, it's hard to root for Donaldson. And it's especially hard when he's not doing well. I mean, I have not forgotten that he was like this massive pain in the as a Blue Jay. And I wish I'd get over it. But I guess because he's struggling, it's hard to root for him for me.
Yep. And so in the chat, all signs are like no one's confident in Donaldson.
No.
And nobody feels good about Hicks in left field. So our predictions about ourselves is accurate and remains accurate. Right. Eli, I don't think everyone's flipping out that Hicks hit a home run yesterday. I think we're smarter than that. But I think it's being mentioned because it's remarkable. and we're looking for some sign of life and production from him. I can't even call it a small sample size.
Right. And I'm going to switch the track here for a minute. Yep. That prediction, who do you have in the leadoff spot? I forgot who you had up at the top.
Yeah, so let me put that up again. We had Bader leading off.
I was wondering what the chat thought of Bader leading off this season, rather than, I guess, DJ, if he's not going to have an everyday spot. But I like Bader as the leadoff guy.
Yeah. So for the top four, we had Bader, Rizzo, Judge, and Stanton. With Hicks coming in fifth. Yeah, exactly. So Elliot, I agree. It felt weird talking about Bader at the top there, but based on everything else, if it all holds true, and unless they decide to put DJ in instead of Donaldson, I don't see a way. The order here would be entirely different if DJ were in the mix. So I guess that means that do we think that it's less likely that it'll be Donaldson and more likely DJ?
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be Donaldson. Maybe that's more gut and just trying to manage my expectations. But I think I'm still hearing so much about DJ's utility that it makes me nervous. And that they're thinking, at least for the start of the season, platooning him.
Yeah.
Maybe being a little bit cautious about the toe still. So that's the rationale there for why we thought let's just be real and put Donaldson there. I think we're both happy to be wrong if that ends up being the case.
Yeah.
And yeah, Li is saying Bader should lead off. Elliot is I guess acquiescing or being sarcastic. I can't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today, I noticed in today's game, the Yankees have Bader leading off. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
Do we get like an award for that?
Yeah, we get an award for that. I think we do.
I think we'll have to give it to ourselves, but we will.
Today's lineup is interesting. It's Bader, Torres, Cabrera at third base. I'd love to see him at third base. I wouldn't care. Donaldson, Cabrera, just make the switch.
And that seems to be the potion that Boone keeps whipping up. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Taste it. Oh, okay, it didn't work so good. Another combo of little this, little of that. Elliot, okay, not sarcastic. Just hadn't thought about Bader leading off. It would have been fine if you're sarcastic. I'm the queen of it, Elliot. And back to the opening day roster for a minute. Michael's saying that Bader, DJ, Rizzo, Judge, Stanton at 5 evens out the lineup. Look, anything that inserts DJ, I don't think any one of us would have a problem with.
No.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
I think we're all team Bader. And FJ is really throwing it down that he's really the only one who fits the prototype for a leadoff hitter.
I had again, I'm sort of jumping around today.
Yeah.
But our friend Deb Seymour had an interesting comment about the young guys. She said Volpe, O'Cab, and Peraza were the reason a lot of trades for the Yanks didn't happen in the offseason. And she said, are we sorry now? Her question, Yankee family, I don't think so. And I think this goes to the heart of a question that we need to ask ourselves as Yankee fans. Do we want to win a World Series now, or do we want to win a World Series in the future? And I don't know if holding on to Volpe and, the young guys makes that more or less possible. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that, I actually responded to Deb and I said, we know our fan base, of course they're still complaining, because that's how we roll. But I said that I'm fine with it. Machado who, Correa what, I think that this was the right call for a change, to just hold on to what we got and use what we got instead of, going for people we bring over because everyone's screaming for them and they had a great last season and then be stuck with a contract like we are with Hicks right now.
Right.
So, and everyone you mentioned, Chris, and that Deb tweeted out about, we wouldn't want it. We'd be the first one screaming if they were part of a package.
Right.
So, no, this is 100% the way it should be. And if we're not happy about it, you better self-reflect a little bit. But so when
I think. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Go ahead. I'm going to put Michael's up for a second because I think it's.
Okay. When have the Yankees ever built with youth? That's a good question, and that's a real good question, actually.
And the answer would be the 2023 season.
Yeah.
If they stick with what we're predicting here, if we are going to see Volpe, before the end of the season, if we're going to see if we're going to see Peraza break camp, if we're going to see Cabrera also on the 40 man.
Right.
Then we're locked and loaded with kids, and then there's Dominguez. Chris, I think you and I were talking about Dominguez.
Yep. I mean, Dominguez is the number one power hitting prospect in the Yankee organization. Is there any chance that he breaks camp and takes over that outfield spot? I don't think that's likely either, given his inexperience in the lower ranks. So I'd love to see that, but
the line ahead of him is crowded and more.
The line ahead of him is crowded.
Yeah, and and Li is also answering FG's question. Yeah, the 90s, the core four, the dream team.
Yeah.
This is the first time since then that has any sort of resemblance to that. And that's really exciting. We just have to try not to be overly optimistic that they don't do anything to mess it up in the front office.
Yes.
But we have that opportunity for sure with what we're seeing, including Dominguez, because the youngest of them all, but we know he's going to be a superstar. There's no question about that. You don't have to have a crystal ball to know that. And I know, Michael, if the trends continue, the Yankees are going to screw it up. I get it. Thanks for keeping it real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was something to be said for, the Yankees trading for a pitcher in the offseason for, once Montas went down. But I'm thinking that our rotation is fine, actually.
I think the rotation is more than fine. I think that it's going to further highlight the mistake it was to bring Montas over.
Yeah.
And so, it'll be a mistake never owned up to, because none of the mistakes ever are. But no, there's no concerns about it. And we know that Rodon is pitching today. Unfortunately, I don't know who can watch it. I know I can't.
No.
I would love, Chris, I think you said you would really love to also see him in action. So what are you guys feeling about Rodon in terms of predictions? What are you expecting from him? Will he stay number 2? Will there be a competition between him and Cole for the ace spot? And I don't know what kind of a sample size we have so far, other than his stellar past. I don't think anyone cried when Rodon was brought over.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I don't think it hurts Cole to have a little competition. I think that probably the two of them are going to make each other better, which is scary, actually. And
right.
I'm thinking now, this is sort of off the subject, but I'm sort of thinking now of going to Yankee Stadium for day 2 of the opening weekend to see Rodon.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're hopping on that train and bringing.
I'm hopping on that train. I really am.
Yeah, and everyone in the chat is saying pretty much that the same thing. There's going to be a battle there, a competitive battle there.
Yeah.
Michael saying that he'll be number 2, and playing in New York is going to be an adjustment. But he's a seasoned ace, so so was it Cole when he got over and the fans got in his head. So that'll be interesting to see. Game 2 will be intriguing. Rodon against his former team. Yeah, well, see ya. I have a new contract with more money, so hopefully,
absolutely,
it'll all be interesting. But the pitching, the starting pitching, especially when you look at Schmidt and Herman, it makes me more. If I were to worry about pitching at all, I'd be more worried about the bullpen still. But even there, I'm not entirely worried. we have a solid closer in Holmes, and I think we'll be fine with the pitching. And I don't remember saying that with any certainty many times in my 40, 50 years as a fan. So, um,
This is the best rotation for a while.
yeah.
It seems to me it's going to be a fun year. Now we just have to have everyone stay healthy. That's the key right there, of course.
Right. And that,
It always
yeah,
is.
why bother predicting that? Because the only thing we
Yeah,
can predict is that it's going to happen. And it's
I
going to be
know.
somebody that will really be upset about.
Yeah,
But, it's going to happen. And the thing is, though, when you look at how deep our bench is, with utility players, um, we're a little bit better off than we were in the most recent seasons.
right.
You know, so I think that, God forbid it happens. Unless it's Cole or Rodon. I don't know. I think overall, we're better stacked than in recent memory.
Yes.
We have youth on our side, and in the youth, it's real up and comers, and we have an element of competition, intra-team competition that we haven't seen before, or at least that would be evident between Cole and Rodon, between the fight for left field and short and even third.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of feathers being unfurled, and strutting around to try to like be the guy. And so that should result in great performance and great numbers if
I
everyone's
hope.
doing their level best.
Yeah, and I've seen people who say that Stanton is the key to this offense, and I wonder what the people in the chat think of that. I think of Stanton. I don't know if I think of him as being the key piece. I mean, he certainly is important as far as protecting Judge in the lineup, but what role do you see Stanton playing this year? Will we see him in left field?
So while everyone in the chat is thinking about that, I'm gonna preface my response by saying, he's my now that Gardy's gone, he's my Yankee boyfriend, and I love him, and I do believe he's essential, but the key, and Elliot said the key question mark. I don't know that we could say that because he does have his inconsistencies, and I don't know if it'll still depend on how much time he gets in the field. Last season, we were all remarking that when he was, playing more in the field, he was doing better at the plate. I mean, he was the MVP of the All-Star game. And so he still got it, kid. But
Right.
is he the key? I think that's a soundbite from the front office. Um, and I don't know that they really feel that way. I think he can be. I would more say he's the clutch guy, because that's, I think, where we see Stanton shine, is when it's clear that we need him to get up the plate and do something. He pretty much does more often than not. Right. And he's there for power. He's not Mr. Small Ball. And so he's successful at that. And so in that way he's key, because we've had others that thought they weren't small ball guys either, and they're not with us anymore.
Right.
But he is, and I think that we'll see that from him. And FJ is saying Stanton has to learn to stop swinging at low and away breaking balls. That's interesting. I wonder if his low and away are anyone else's belt line, with the pitches at 6'6", kind of with Judge.
Yeah.
That's an aside. Does he need some adjustments? I would venture a guess. Yeah, of course he does. I would think, other than Aaron Judge, everyone does. And yeah, Elliot, yeah, Judge is the
Judge
guy.
is the guy.
No one would ever argue with that. Yeah, Michael. Oh, will this into existence, Michael?
Will, yes, definitely. Let's speak it. I mean, if Stan hit 40 homers, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and he has it in him to do it. So, and Elliot, I think we're going to run on opposing tickets here, because I would say that if Judge is president, then Rizzo is the vice president.
That's funny.
They share a dog love. That kind of bond can't be broken. But but I do agree with you on principle there. Yeah, so some predictions are broken and reshaped.
Yep. Halfway, so far we're doing okay. The guys that we think are going to perform are performing. We haven't gotten to see everybody do everything yet, so it's just fun to see what goes on from this point forward. Opening day is going to be amazing as far as whoever's in there. If it's Peraza, I would be thrilled to see that. If it's anybody but IKF, I'll be thrilled on opening day. But
Yep.
I don't want to leave too little time for you to talk. This is the beginning of Women's History Month. Lynn, I know you've got highlighting a women baseball for us today.
Yep, I sure am. Thank you. And so I am going to tell you just a little bit about our player of the week for women's baseball. And this is Jean Fout. Jean Fout, unfortunately, passed away this past Tuesday at the age of 98. She's a former pitcher for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. She was a 2-time Player of the Year and a 4-time All-Star. Fout is considered by baseball historians and researchers as the greatest overhand pitcher in AAG PBL history. And Jean was the only professional pitcher, either male or female, to toss 2 perfect games in her career. Jean Fout pitched 4 no-hitters, 2 of which were perfect games. Jean was also a fine third baseman when she wasn't pitching. Her career pitching stats, get this. She pitched in 235 games for 1,780 innings, for 243 earned runs, and an ERA of 1.23.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So her career wins and losses, her wins were 140, her losses were 64. And even, by today's standards, we'd love to see a major leaguer leaving their career with these kind of numbers. I'd venture to say Cooperstown.
Yeah.
And speaking of Cooperstown, that top left picture of Jean is her with her statue that was put in Cooperstown for the AAGPBL exhibit there.
Oh.
And so it is the perfect time to honor Jean Fout as a shining example of women's contribution to baseball history. And so with that, we go right to the trivia question of the week.
Absolutely.
And our resident trivia master, Elliot, is with us today in the chat. So here it is. I'm going to try to share the screen here with this. Let me just go ahead and do it, because I'm not trusting my technical skills again. I'm not a good chance it. Okay, so here it is. What any Yankee fan wouldn't do just to get a taste of being on the team 15 years ago, it happened. In 2008, this renowned comedian was signed by the Yankees. Yes, signed by the Yankees, and surprisingly made contact in his only at-bat in a spring training game against the Pirates. Who was this one day only Yankee? 2008 renowned comedian signed by the
Okay.
Yankees.
I've got a good guess myself, but let us know what you think. Comment, check us out on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. We're happy you joined us this Sunday, even though we had a rough ride technologically. We're always glad that we have conversations with you to keep the Yankees spirit alive when even during spring training.
Yes, and really, thank you so much for sticking with us, glitches and all, and being with us every week. And as always, you have a reserved seat with Chris and me right here on the upper deck. Go Rodon, show us your stuff,
Go Yankees!
and go Yankees.